It's almost October 6th, and just before we thought we'd see the defense team for Bridge Guy actually file something more intentional delays, asking for items they should have had months ago. But they are having a hard time keeping up with these after all those leaks and lies. It's been nearly a decade since two young girls were murdered on the Monon High Bridge in Delphi, Indiana. And even now, almost 9 years later, the man convicted in that case, Richard Matthew Allen, is still fighting his legal battle from behind bars. On October 3rd, 2025, the Indiana Court of Appeals issued a new order. It didn't make front-page headlines, but it's an important step in what has become one of the most closely watched appeals in state history. This order comes from the Court of Appeals under cause number 25A-CR-591, signed at 2:21 p.m. by the Chief Judge. Now, this isn't a ruling on guilt or innocence. It's a procedural step, part of the long, exhausting appellate process that follows a conviction. Allen's attorneys filed what's called a verified motion to compel transmission of exhibits and new due date. That's legal language for, we think the official court transcript is missing key evidence, and we need the Court of Appeals to fix it. And we also need more time to finish our appeal brief. The missing materials were exhibits from two earlier filings, the September 18th, 2023 motion for a Franks hearing and the January 20th, 2025 motion to correct error. These weren't admitted during the trial itself, so they weren't part of the official transcript. But they were filed with the clerk's office, meaning they're part of what's called the clerk's record under Indiana Appellate Rule 2E. The defense argued that those exhibits belong in the appellate record. Without them, the judges wouldn't see the full picture behind their claims of procedural error, flawed warrants, and misconduct. The court reviewed the motion and made its decision. Here's what they ordered. Number 1, the motion was granted in part. Allen's exhibits will be transmitted and included in the appellate record. Number 2, the extension was approved, but it's the last one. The judge's message was clear. This is it. Allen's appellant's brief, the document where his lawyers make their full argument against the conviction, is now due on October 21st, 2025. That brief will outline every error they believe occurred, improper procedure, mishandled evidence, due process violations, and questions of fairness inside the Carroll County courtroom. It's the final, written chance for the defense to make their case. Once that brief is filed, the state of Indiana will respond. The Attorney General's office will file their response brief, defending the verdict and pushing back against the defense's arguments. Then Allen's team can reply one last time. After that, the case moves into the hands of the appellate judges, 3 of them, who will review the case file, the trial transcript, and both sides' arguments in detail. No jury, no new witnesses, just a paper trail and the law. Those judges will have 3 choices. They can affirm the conviction, meaning Allen stays right where he is. They can reverse it, which could send the case back for a new trial, or they can remand it, send it back to the trial court for further proceedings or clarification. That process isn't fast. It can take months, sometimes a year, before the opinion is written and filed. To put this into perspective, the murders happened on February 13th, 2017. Allen wasn't arrested until October 22. He was convicted in 2024, and now, by the fall of 2025, he's not still fighting to appeal that outcome. Only his attorneys are, which is a waste of time. If and when the Court of Appeals denies the appeal, the next step is the Indiana Supreme Court. And if they take it, this case could still be alive well into 2026, marking nearly 10 years since the girls' deaths on the Monon High Bridge. So, what does this new order mean? It's not a game changer, but it's proof this case is still moving. The fight isn't over, although it really is. The defense has until October 21st to make their final argument. After that, the appellate judges will decide whether to uphold Richard Allen's conviction or open the door to another chapter in the long, painful story of Delphi. Legal procedures, boring paperwork, or the hidden power behind justice? Today's story about a high-profile criminal appeal shows how tiny technical details can completely change the fate of a case.
That's such an interesting way to look at it, especially when we consider how these procedural elements often have more impact than the dramatic courtroom moments we see on TV.
You know, what fascinates me most about this Richard Allen appeal is how his legal team is fighting for these specific exhibits to be included. Documents from a Frank's hearing motion and a motion to correct error. It's like they're collecting ammunition for a very precise legal battle.
Could you break down what makes these particular documents so crucial? I mean, we're talking about exhibits that weren't even presented during the trial.
Well, think of it this way. In the legal world, there are two parallel universes of documentation. You've got your trial transcript, which is everything that happens in the courtroom. And then you've got this whole other world called the clerk's record. It's like having both the script and the director's notes for a play.
That's exactly what makes this so interesting. These exhibits they're fighting for weren't part of the performance, so to speak, but they might be crucial to understanding the whole story.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting. The Frank's hearing materials could potentially challenge the entire foundation of the case if they can prove law enforcement wasn't completely truthful in their search warrant application. Well, that could lead to evidence being thrown out.
So if we're looking at the bigger picture, this October 2025 deadline the court set, calling it a final extension, that's pretty significant, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and you know what's fascinating about that timing? In the world of complex appeals like this, even though October 2025 sounds far away, it's actually a pretty tight deadline when you're weaving together multiple legal arguments.
Well, that really puts things in perspective when we consider the meticulous nature of appeal work.
And let's talk about this appellant's appendix for a moment. It's like creating the ultimate greatest hits album of your case. Every document has to earn its place, which is why they're fighting so hard to include these specific exhibits.
The strategic implications of that are pretty remarkable when you think about it. They're not just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly, and you know what's really telling? In similar successful appeals, it often comes down to these precise procedural points. It's like building a house. The foundation might not be Instagram worthy, but it's absolutely essential to everything that follows.
Speaking of foundations, how do you see all these different elements coming together in their overall appeal strategy?
Well, looking at successful appeals historically, we typically see three key components: procedural precision, substantive legal arguments, and compelling narrative. What's fascinating here is how Allen's team seems to be carefully laying groundwork in all three areas.
The methodical nature of it really contrasts with public perceptions of how justice works, doesn't it?
Absolutely. While most people think of justice in terms of dramatic courtroom confrontations, the reality is that cases are often won or lost in these careful, technical procedures that happen behind the scenes.
You know what's particularly interesting about this case? The way it highlights how crucial these seemingly mundane legal processes are to ensuring fair trials.
Looking ahead to October 21st, 2025, I think we'll see these exhibits being used to construct very specific legal arguments. The Frank's hearing materials will likely form the backbone of their challenge to the search warrant, while the motion to correct error exhibits might reveal other procedural issues they've potentially identified. But not once can they prove he is innocent and Allen will remain behind bars forever.
That's going to be fascinating to watch unfold, seeing how all these pieces come together into a coherent legal argument. However, I think it all sounds good on paper, but old Bridge Guy's plan of action is about to go down the hill.
And that's really the key takeaway here. In the legal system, justice often depends not on dramatic revelations, but on these careful, methodical procedures that ensure every piece of evidence gets its fair consideration. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important work happens in the quiet moments, in the careful attention to detail that makes our legal system function. But in the end, Richard Allen has given up, thrown in the towel, and says he just wants this all to be over and to serve his time. Once again, making all the Chomo supporters look even more ignorant for trying free. A child killer. Those are the people your parents told you about. Those are the people we read about in the news. Those are the predators that prey on kids. And they are watching this video right now, waiting to comment. And when you see trash talkers, you found another predator who's taken offense for me calling it like I see it, or shouldn't say, calling it exactly what it really is. I'm Anthony Greeno, and this is True Crime Investigates.